My name is Claire. I'm 27 now. But time doesn't matter when the past clings to you like smoke in your hair. You stop measuring life by age and start measuring it by silence. I grew up in the forgotten corners of suburban Columbus, Ohio. But to say I grew up is generous. I existed there. I counted shadows on the walls and listened for footsteps that never came upstairs. We lived in a house, sure, but a home. That word felt like a foreign language. Elaine, never mom, made that clear early. I was 3 the first time she corrected me. Being called mom makes me feel old, she said, flicking her cigarette into the sink. Her tone was surgical, like she was slicing away any illusion I had about who we were to each other. That was her legacy, cutting things before they had a chance to grow. She was the girl everyone envied in high school. Cheer captain, beautiful, loud laughing, always eyes on somewhere else. Then she got pregnant. With me, 17, and grounded by biology. And somehow, she never forgave me for it. She looked me in the eye once and said it plain, "You were a mistake." I could have gone to UCLA. I was 8 and already learning to swallow shame before dinner. Thomas, my father, was more ghost than man. Elaine kicked him out before my legs remembered how to walk. Still, he tried to be present. But she never gave him a door, only names: loser, deadbeat, waste. Whenever he came by, the air changed like burned plastic, acrid and toxic. He left, and she made sure his absence had teeth. Then came Brett. I was 10. He was decent, gentle, a structural engineer with a careful voice. He married Elaine in under a year. She gave him Olivia not long after. And with Olivia's first cry, my place in the house was buried beneath pastel blankets and lavender walls. Elaine morphed into someone I didn't recognize. She laughed more, baked, decorated. She learned how to be a mother, just not to me. I remember my 12th birthday. I didn't expect much. Maybe a cupcake, a hug, a flicker of acknowledgement. Instead, she tossed a cold pizza box on the table. "Don't expect things," she snapped. "I've got Olivia's party to plan." I bit into a slice with a candle stabbed into cardboard, turned my face so she wouldn't see the tears, because tears were weakness, and weakness made her angry. Olivia had it all: glittery dresses, birthday ponies, her name in frosting. I had a storage room with a flickering bulb and chipped paint. No one asked if I was cold. No one asked anything. Brett tried. He brought medicine when I was sick. Vanilla ice cream when I aced English. But Elaine cut off every kindness with a glare. "She's not your real daughter," she'd hiss. "She's the borrowed last name girl." That phrase stuck. It clung like a curse borrowed. Temporary. Unwanted. So I learned to disappear. Books became my lullaby. Silence became my armor. I didn't ask questions. I didn't cry loud. I just waited, hoping that one day she'd see me. But the older I got, the colder the truth became. It wasn't that I wasn't lovable. It was that she chose not to love me. On purpose. Sometimes I thought maybe I was imagining it. That maybe I was too emotional. Too sensitive. But then Olivia's 6th birthday happened. The house turned into a fairy tale balloons, a treasure hunt, a 3-tier princess cake. Brett wore a wizard robe. The children squealed with joy. And in that chaos, I stood in the kitchen holding a tray of lemonade like I was hired help. Elaine bent to whisper into Olivia's ear, and the little girl erupted into laughter. Someone beside me, a mother I didn't know, sighed and said, "She's so lucky." What a wonderful mom. I smiled, a small, polite, poisonous smile. No one knew I was Elaine's first daughter. That I was once a child, too, who wished for magic. That I was standing there 16 years old, mourning a mother who was still alive. That year, like every year, my birthday came with a cold chicken sandwich left on the counter and her favorite line, "Don't expect anything, Claire. I've got 100 things to deal with." Once I tried asking, quietly. It was late, just the two of us. I said, "Maybe we could do dinner sometime. Just you and me." She didn't even look up right away. Then she lowered her phone and laughed. "You want me to go into debt taking you to dinner? Do you know how expensive you are?" "Cry to your dad." That was her weapon, Thomas. She wielded his absence like a knife, as if his leaving gave her license to erase me. But Thomas never forgot. He sent gifts, cards, every single year, always handwritten. And every time he wrote the same line, "Claire, you deserve all the love in the world." Sometimes I'd read those words under the covers with a flashlight, like a secret promise, like maybe one day they'd come true. He wasn't rich. He didn't bring gifts wrapped in gold or drive a car that turned heads. But my father Thomas had a different kind of wealth, the kind that shows up quietly, consistently, like sunlight through a cracked window. Every weekend without fail, he was there. Sometimes with ice cream. Sometimes with silence. Always with presence. When Elaine once screamed over spilled milk, her voice jagged and sharp, he arrived early, pulled me into his arms and whispered, "You are not a burden, Claire. You are the light of my life." I lived off those words for years. They were my emergency rations tucked into the darkest corners of my memory. On days when the world felt too heavy, I returned to them. Especially the day he let me pick any book I wanted from a dusty old shop downtown. I chose one with a worn red cover. I still have it. Inside in his handwriting, "For Claire, the bravest girl I've ever known." Elaine never asked what I read. Never asked about school, my grades, or if I even liked myself. With Olivia, though, it was another universe. She built models with her, colored worksheets, counted stars on construction paper. Love didn't just exist, it thrived in front of me, but always just beyond reach. I didn't envy the attention. What hollowed me out was the erasure, the way Elaine looked through me, not at me, like I was an empty seat at the dinner table. One night the words slipped from my mouth before I could stop them. "Why do you love Olivia more than me?" Elaine didn't flinch. She barely looked up. "Stop playing the victim, Claire. I don't have the energy to baby a mistake." There it was again, that word. Mistake. A label she pinned to me like a warning sign. I felt my lungs tighten, and for the first time I realized this wasn't about me. It never was. She wasn't punishing me for who I was. She was punishing herself for what she lost, and I was the reminder. Olivia was her redemption. I was the scar. But I never hated Olivia. How could I? She was the only one who knocked on my door at night with a slice of birthday cake when no one else remembered the date. She was the one who hugged me without being told. I only hated myself for the years I spent hoping a locked door would suddenly swing open. I left home at 18. College in Cincinnati. Not too far, not too close. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't expect a hug or a tear. And I was right. Elaine watched me load the car and said flatly, "Go if you want. Just don't ask me for money." I didn't look back. If love had ever lived in that house, it had long since packed its things and left. But Brett, her husband, was the first to email me. A simple, "How's the dorm?" and Olivia sweet. Olivia texted me each night, "Did you eat? Meet anyone nice?" And Thomas, every Saturday, like clockwork he called. Same soft tone, Same teasing line. Is your bookshelf full yet, kiddo? Those who weren't obligated to care did, and that made all the difference. Still, life wasn't easy. I worked part-time at a campus cafe, fingers red from scrubbing tabletops on bitter autumn nights. But my chest felt lighter. No Elaine, no comparisons, no cold pizza slices beside party streamers not meant for me. It was in that cafe that I met Ian, architecture student, quiet, observant. He sat in the far corner, always by the window, always sketching with that worn leather notebook. One night, he handed me a page, a sketch of me captured mid-motion. Below it, in soft pencil, "You deserve to be seen." Something inside me cracked, not in pain, but in recognition. Ian never asked about my past, never tried to dig. He simply looked at me with the kind of eyes that don't need explanations. "You look like someone who's been through fire," he once said, but didn't let it burn her down. We dated for almost a year. And then came Thanksgiving sophomore year. I brought him home. It was a mistake I didn't know I was making. Elaine stood in the kitchen slicing apples, and when she turned, her first words weren't, "Welcome home, but didn't expect you to land someone like that." I smiled politely, pretended not to hear the venom, but something in me froze. I saw it then, the way she studied Ian. Not with disdain, but possession. Not love for me, but interest in him. And from that moment on, everything shifted. Not her cruelty toward me, but something worse, her charm toward him. Elaine didn't waste time. The moment Ian and I stepped into the living room that Thanksgiving, she shifted from passive to performative, smiling too wide, standing too close. She asked about his major, complimented his posture, even joked about how mature he seemed for his age. And then, like slipping a knife between ribs, she turned to me and said it softly, as if it were casual. "Are you sure he actually likes you? Maybe he just feels sorry for you." Ian froze, his mouth parting to speak. But I shook my head, a barely there motion. Not now, not here, not again. It was the kind of wound I'd learned to cauterize in silence, painful, yes, but predictable, and that made it easier to mask. Later, Ian told me she'd sent him a friend request on Facebook. I didn't flinch, just told him to accept it. It was easier that way. Avoid the storm. But I hadn't anticipated the long game she was playing, the months of messages that followed long after Ian and I ended things. Not because of a fight, just life. Different cities, different paths. Still, she clung to the thread. It began innocently. "How's work? Hope you're eating well." Then evolved into forwarded articles about relationships, love languages, and fate. Cat memes, cheesy quotes about serendipity. The kind of passive flirtation masked as maternal curiosity. When I asked her about it directly, she smirked stone cold and said, "Ian and I talk like two mature adults." Or, "Are you just jealous I didn't answer?" Not because I was jealous, but because that was the moment I saw her clearly, for the first time. She never saw me as a daughter. I was a dull mirror one she refused to look into. If someone shined brighter, if someone could offer her attention she hadn't earned, she'd find a way to steal it, even if it meant dancing through the ashes of my life. For years, I believed Elaine was simply incapable of mothering, but that wasn't it. She was skilled, surgical, she knew where to cut, how deep, when to twist. It was Ian who said it first. One rainy afternoon, we sat under the awning of a quiet cafe. He looked at me carefully, almost afraid of the question. "Claire, have you ever thought she might be competing with you?" I laughed, hollow, tired. "Competing with me." He nodded, eyes still on his cup. "Not overtly. But when you smile, when someone sees you, really sees you, it seems to unsettle her. I couldn't argue, so I didn't. I just sat there, silent, and started tracing the pattern. The day I got a scholarship, one meant for disadvantaged women in social studies, Thomas called mid-meeting. His voice cracked with pride. Brett sent flowers with a note. "So proud of you, Elaine." She glanced up from the couch and said, "It's just a community scholarship. Don't overdo it." I paused, still offering her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she didn't understand. But doubt began to rot, because the pattern kept repeating. When I landed a rare internship in Chicago, 3 selected from over 200, I came home glowing. Surely this time, she would say something kind. She didn't miss a beat, just raised an eyebrow and said, "Did they pick you for merit or for diversity quotas?" I stood frozen in the hallway. Something in me snapped, not loudly, but sharply. For the first time, I answered without apology. "Probably because I wasn't white enough or delicate enough for you to sign me up for ballet at 5. Elaine said nothing, poured more wine, walked out onto the porch like the scene had never happened. That's when I stopped. Stopped hoping. Stopped justifying. Stopped knocking on a locked door that would never open. And then I started watching, closely. Her little acts of sabotage dressed in silk. She mocked my haircut girls with cropped hair look rough like boys. But when Olivia got the same edgy bob, "You look so modern, like a New York model," she told me I was too emotionally immature for a relationship. A week later, she posted a picture of her and Ian having lunch. The caption, "So nice having an architect friend who really gets me." When my first article was published in the campus paper, she didn't say a word. But when Olivia won a class art prize, Elaine printed it in color, framed it, and placed it in the center of the living room. Maybe it wasn't that she couldn't stand me. Maybe it was that I had something she believed was stolen from her, and watching me reclaim pieces of it without her help felt to her like betrayal. It wasn't that I had outshone Olivia. It was that I had survived, and survival in Elaine's world was rebellion. I think deep down she hated that I was still standing, that after all the erosion, the quiet wars, the cold silences, and humiliating stabs in front of dinner guests, I hadn't crumbled. I'd become something dangerous to her, a woman rising. A woman no longer orbiting around her gravitational pull. Elaine needed to be needed, and my independence. It was an offense. It left her untethered, unnecessary. Ian saw it before I did. Maybe that's why he left, not out of absence of love, but out of exhaustion. "I love you, Claire." He said that last night, voice heavy, "but I can't watch you keep breathing her air. You don't have to carry it anymore." I didn't beg him to stay. I just nodded. Quiet. Not because I didn't need him, but because I knew I couldn't walk into the light if I was still dragging her shadow behind me. I had to break the chain myself. And I did, piece by piece. Until one day at a community housing conference in Indianapolis, I met Phil. He wasn't flashy. No grand entrance. Just presence, the real kind. He listened the way architects observe space, patiently, attentively. Already imagining what could be built there. We connected over late-night conversations about housing policy, equity, forgotten communities, then eventually forgotten children. I told him about Elaine one evening, my voice soft, confessional. About the cold pizza birthday, the plastic candle, the silence. He didn't try to fix it, just placed a warm hand on my shoulder and asked Claire, "What kind of mother do you want to be?" No one had ever asked me that. Right then, I knew. If I ever became a mother, I wanted the man beside me to be Phil, Our wedding was small wooden chapel by Lake Monroe. Soft wind, bare branches, flickers of warmth. My father was there, mist in his eyes. Olivia radiant. Brett solid as ever. Elaine came, but only because Brett persuaded her. She sat at the back, dressed like a guest at someone else's gala, her expression unreadable champagne silk and frozen contempt. When Phil said his vows, I looked at her. Her face didn't shift, but behind the blankness I saw something flicker. Not sadness, not rage. Confusion. As if she were watching a script she hadn't written, unable to find her role in the scene. A week later, we invited everyone to dinner at our new apartment. Soft lights, jazz humming under the clink of wine glasses. I announced the pregnancy with 2 mugs, Mom and Dad, and a folded napkin embroidered with baby on the way. Brett was the first to react, laughing like he'd waited his whole life to be told this. Olivia shrieked, "I knew it!" My father's hands trembled as he raised his glass, his voice rough with joy. "You're going to be an incredible mom." Then, silence. Elaine hadn't moved. She just leaned back, arms folded across that pristine dress, and said in a tone dipped in acid, "So, you think you're ready to be a mother?" No one breathed. Phil's hand slid under the table and found mine. I felt his fingers tighten as I answered softly but clear, "I don't just think so." "I know I am." Elaine's scoffed eyes narrowing. "I thought Olivia would be the one to make me a grandmother first, but apparently—" Her voice trailed off like a bitter wind. No one laughed. No one smiled. All eyes shifted toward her, finally seeing what I'd seen for years. And in that moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt sorrow. Because it wasn't about the baby. It was about the fact that I, not Olivia, was carrying the family line forward. That the mistake, her mistake, was glowing in ways she never could. When the group gathered for photos, she refused. She stood near the doorway like a ghost haunting a celebration, arms crossed, gaze elsewhere. And as she left, her final words slid out like poison wrapped in politeness. "I'm not against this. Just don't expect me to hold the baby because you think having a kid is some big deal." That night, Phil held me quietly, his voice a whisper against my hair. "I don't get how a mother could react like that." I rested my head against his chest. "Because she's never seen me as her daughter," I said. "Only as a wrinkle in the resume of her youth. But this time, I was no longer the girl hoping for kindness. I was a woman growing life inside her. I had chosen peace, a husband who saw me, a home built not out of obligation, but love. And if Elaine couldn't accept that, then that was her exile, not mine. I thought maybe after the pregnancy was announced, she would finally go quiet. But I was wrong. It wasn't even a week after the announcement. The sun hadn't yet set on the last congratulations when Elaine called not to celebrate but to issue a warning. Her voice was cold, clinical, like she was calling about a business deal gone sour. "Claire," she said, "no warmth, no joy. Are you planning to announce this pregnancy everywhere?" For a second, I was disoriented. "What do you mean?" She exhaled, long annoyed. "You got pregnant right after the wedding. Don't you realize what people will think? What they'll think about this family? About me?" I froze. My fingers tightened around the phone. "Are you serious?" "Of course I'm serious," she snapped. "I have a reputation. I'm on the board of the Women's Business Club. I do charity work. I'm invited to city events. You think I want them whispering behind my back that my daughter couldn't even wait? That I raised the kind of girl who rushes into marriage to cover up a mistake? It hit me like a slap I didn't see coming. The same old wound, but sharper now. Deeper. I'm not ruining your image, I said slowly, voice quivering, but no longer breaking. I married the man I love. I'm carrying our first child. That's sacred, not shameful. Silence. Then her voice dropped into that poisonous, condescending tone she saved for moments like this. Sacred? She scoffed. Claire, don't romanticize everything like it's a TV drama. I used to be someone. Now I'll be labeled a grandmother before Olivia even gets her degree. That was it. The last line drawn in blood. I inhaled slowly. Then go build your image, Elaine, I said. But don't expect to be part of my child's life. Claire, don't. No, I cut her off. Voice shaking, not with grief, but fury. Righteous, long-buried fury. If a baby makes you feel ashamed, you don't deserve to be called their grandmother. And if my son ever asks why he doesn't have one, I'll tell him the truth that his mother begged for love her whole life and got nothing but silence in return. I didn't wait for her reply. I hung up. No goodbye, no second thoughts. Just me in the small, sunlit room of the home I built with Phil. My hands resting on a belly that grew heavier by the day. And I knew, without doubt, I'd just ended something. A legacy of silence. A dynasty of shame disguised as discipline. The cycle was broken. The next morning, she sent a message. Long, calculated. I'm sorry if my tone yesterday came off too harsh. I'm just concerned about the family's image. Maybe your hormones are making you extra sensitive. I didn't reply. A week later, another message. Softer. Slippery. Claire, I really want to make peace. I think you should calm down and reconsider your overreaction. I'm your mother. I have a right to be concerned. I read it, then deleted it. No reply. No fight. Some things deserve no answer. Some silences speak louder. A few days later, Olivia called. Claire, Mom's shaken. But I get it. I get you. My throat tightened. You don't have to apologize for her. I'm not, she said firmly. I just want you to know I'm with you. That baby, they'll always have me. My hand moved to my belly. A small nudge, faint, but real. A reminder I was no longer alone. I had Phil, Olivia, Dad, Brett. A constellation of people who didn't need biology to show up. Elaine gave up her seat at this table, because for her, appearances were always the meal, never the meaning. And if love doesn't come wrapped in respect, then presence is just noise. I didn't need her in the baby pictures, not at birthdays, not in bedtime stories. My child wouldn't grow up waiting at windows for someone who'd never come. And I finally was becoming the mother I once needed. The baby shower happened on a warm Sunday at the end of March, sunlight spilling over the little garden behind Brett and Olivia's house. Laughter drifted like soft music. No drama, no judgment, just real love. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look around wondering what was missing. The garden smelled like lavender and sugar. Olivia had planned everything with the precision of someone trying to rewrite the past. Cream-colored cake, silver balloons tangled through the vines, a soft banner whispering, "Welcome, baby," under the sunlight. Phil held my hand the entire time, his touch grounding his presence, a quiet vow. He had always been gentle, but that day, he watched me the way a man watches a dream he's finally allowed to keep. I felt seen. I was mid-conversation with an old coworker when I saw Olivia rushing toward me. Her face was pale, her voice urgent. "Elaine just got here," she whispered. "Claire, she said she has a surprise." My stomach tightened. "What kind of surprise?" Olivia shook her head. "I don't know. But her eyes, something's off." I turned just in time to see her enter. That dress, shiny teal silk reflective like armor. Her smile was plastic stretched too wide, and behind her walked a ghost. Ian. My ex. The man I hadn't seen in 3 years. The man I thought I'd buried in the quiet corners of my life respectfully, permanently. I couldn't breathe. Phil squeezed my hand. "Do you want me to?" I shook my head, trying to steady my heartbeat. Elaine strode into the center of the garden like a performer on cue. Then loud enough to puncture every conversation, she declared, "Today isn't just about celebrating my grandchild. It's about fixing a mistake from the past. Everyone meet Ian, the man Claire should have been with all along." Silence fell like shattered glass. I opened my mouth ready to speak, but Ian beat me to it. "No." His voice was steady, loud. "I'm not here to get back with Claire. I'm here to end this ridiculous fantasy." Heads turned. Elaine stiffened, but Ian didn't flinch. "I've stayed silent long enough," he said, turning to the guests. "For the past 3 months, Elaine has messaged me every week. She told me Claire is lost, that her marriage is fake, that this baby is a mistake, and I'm the only one who ever made her feel alive." Elaine's face went white, then pink, then gray. But Ian didn't stop. She spun lies so outrageous I thought I was reading the script for a soap opera. She told me Claire didn't love Phil, that I needed to save her. That's why I'm here, not to win her back, but to make sure this ends. He turned to me. His voice softened. "I'm sorry for showing up, Claire, but you deserve better than this chaos. Better than a baby shower hijacked by your mother's obsession with control." From his jacket, he pulled an envelope. "Every message, every word, in case she denies it. But maybe you don't need proof anymore." He placed it on the gift table, nodded respectfully at Phil, then walked out the gate. No one stopped him. Elaine stood motionless. Her face a contorted mask of rage and embarrassment, as though she couldn't tell which emotion to wear. The silence clung to her like a noose. I stepped forward. My voice was calm but sharp. "It's not Ian's presence that disgusts me. It's that you thought humiliating me in front of my friends, my husband, and my child was acceptable." I took a breath. A deep one. "From this moment on, you are no longer part of this family." Elaine's mouth opened, but Phil stepped in. "You should leave," he said. "And next time you plan to destroy a family, don't bring the one person willing to expose the truth." Elaine left without a word. No one offered to walk her out. And when the gate closed behind her, I turned back toward the only people that mattered. Olivia, my father, Brett, Phil. I hugged them all. And for the first time in my life, I felt the weight lift. 3 days later, I got a message from Brett. "Claire, I spoke with Elaine. You should know what she said." I didn't respond immediately. That evening, after Phil had fallen asleep, I stepped onto the porch and opened my phone. The message continued. I asked her if she regretted anything. Her response was, "I just want Claire to know she's no better than Olivia." My fingers went numb. A cold wind kissed the back of my neck like a ghost brushing past. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was angry that I didn't bend. Another message followed. "I moved out this morning. I can't live with someone who treats real emotion like it's a threat to her image. Olivia has cut her off too. I sat with that for a long time. Elaine had lost them. Lost everything she once used to validate herself: Brett's stability, Olivia's affection. The mask had shattered, and she had nothing left behind it. 3 weeks later, I went into labor. No calls, no messages, no visits from Elaine. The silence was perfect. Not cruel, not sad, just clean. But the absence didn't ache, not like I once feared it would. In that hospital room, with the weight of 18 hours of labor pressing through me, all I felt was presence. Phil never left my side, not once. He held my hand through every contraction, like he was anchoring me to this earth, whispering strength into every breath. And when Mason came into the world, red and wrinkled and perfect, my father held him with trembling hands and whispered, "You're the miracle I didn't know I was waiting for." He looked at his first grandchild, like the world had just been given a second chance. Olivia decorated the hospital room with trembling hands and absolute love, every letter of "Welcome Baby Mason" strung across the windows, as if she was rewriting every birthday I never got. That quiet devotion, that fierce loyalty. I didn't grow up with it, but my son would. Mason arrived just over 7 pounds tiny and strong, with Phil's ocean blue eyes and dark curls that mirrored mine from an old forgotten photo. When the nurse placed him in my arms, I leaned in close and whispered, "Hello, little one. You're not a burden. You're the beginning." The days that followed were chaos in soft lighting, late nights, early cries, diaper disasters, but never loneliness. Phil woke every night to rock Mason so I could sleep. My father came by every Sunday, his soup always too salty, his hugs always just right. Olivia dropped in every Tuesday like clockwork, always carrying something small: a knitted hat, soft socks, a book stitched in cloth. Elaine vanished. I didn't chase her absence. Brett told me she spent weeks blaming everyone, me, Ian, the family. She insisted it had all been some elaborate setup, that we were manipulated, that the real betrayal was ours. But no one believed her this time. No one bent. Brett filed for separation 2 months after Mason's birth. Olivia moved out. No more hoping. No more waiting. Even loyalty has a shelf life, and sometimes the most radical act of love is leaving. Only once did she break the silence. A single voicemail. Her voice cracked through static Claire. "I didn't think it would go this far. If it's better that I stay out of it, I will. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I'm not apologizing either." I didn't delete it. I kept it not as a keepsake, but as a reminder that some people will never understand, and that you don't need their understanding to live a whole peaceful life. 1 year later, Mason turned 1. We hosted a small party in our backyard, the same garden where everything nearly shattered. Phil rebuilt the white arch. Olivia made lemon cupcakes with blue frosting. My father sang the birthday song off-key, delighting Mason so much he collapsed into giggles. I watched him take his first wobbly steps on the grass. And in that moment, I knew I had done everything right. Elaine didn't belong in that picture, not because I hated her, but because she didn't know how to love without strings. She only knew affection when it polished her own reflection. And I no longer needed that kind of love. I didn't need perfection. I needed truth. And from that truth, I had built something resilient, real. Mason would never have to earn love by shrinking himself. He would never stare at a cold slice of pizza and wonder what he did wrong. He would know love by its warmth, not its weight. One crisp autumn afternoon, I took Mason to the park. He could walk now, confident little steps through golden leaves, cheeks kissed by the wind. Every few feet he'd turn back and flash me the kind of smile that stops time. I sat on the bench, coffee in hand, sunlight slanting through the trees, and for the first time in my life, I felt something deeper than happiness. I felt peace. I'd stepped out of the storm I'd been born into, and I hadn't even realized it until the quiet wrapped around me like a warm coat. I don't remember exactly when I last saw Elaine. Maybe it was the baby shower, her face pale, her exit silent. She hasn't called, hasn't written. No apology, no attempt. But I no longer wait for that kind of closure. Elaine couldn't love without control, couldn't celebrate without comparison, couldn't let go of an image long enough to see the truth standing in front of her. And that was never my fault. Elaine didn't just lose me. She lost Brett. She lost Olivia. She lost the illusion she spent years curating this picture-perfect family, carefully manicured for the approval of strangers. A fragile empire built on reputation and rot. I used to believe that isolation was the worst punishment for a mother, but I see it differently now. Isolation isn't punishment, it's consequence. The natural fallout of choices made without love of control, disguised as concern. I didn't cut ties to hurt her. I cut them to save something precious, Mason, yes, but also myself. The part of me that once whispered in shame, "You'll never be enough." The part that bent and shrank, desperate to fit into Elaine's definition of a daughter worth loving. I protected that voice. I gave it space. I let it heal. One night during my 6th month of pregnancy, Phil sat beside me, hand on my stomach, and said softly, "We don't have to repeat what we came from, Claire. We get to rewrite it all. From how we hold our child to how we answer them in the dark." And that's what I did. When Mason cried at 2 a.m., I didn't grow cold. I picked him up, held him, whispered, "Mom's here." When he fell, I didn't lecture him. I knelt beside him and said, "Try again. It's okay. I'm not raising a child who fears failure. I'm raising a child who knows gentleness is strength." And I've learned something else. Cutting off your mother doesn't mean you've given up on family. Family isn't a title, it's a choice. It's Phil, who never uses silence as a weapon, who doesn't make love feel like a transaction. It's my father, who may be older, but whose reliability has never aged. It's Olivia, who, despite being my half-sister, has always been whole in her love. And it's Mason, my son, my legacy growing not under the shadow of comparison, but in the light of permission to simply be himself. If there's one truth I want Mason to carry through his life, it's this. You don't owe anyone your peace just because they share your blood. You don't have to bleed to be seen. You don't have to prove you're worthy of love. You are. That autumn afternoon, as I sat on the porch with warm coffee in my hands and sunlight soft on my face, I watched Mason chase yellow leaves and laugh at the wind. A small sparrow landed on the fence nearby, tilting its head, then shot into the sky. I watched it until it disappeared beyond the trees. Not every story ends with reconciliation. Not every mother-daughter wound can be stitched. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you chose truth over fantasy. It means you walked away from the storm and learned how to build shelter with your own hands. Claire's story is a quiet rebellion, a brave refusal, a lesson whispered through generations. Jealousy is not love, control is not care, and blood is not a guarantee of safety. But with clarity, courage, and a new kind of love, you can change the legacy. You can write a different ending, or maybe a better beginning. If Claire's journey moved you, if you've ever had to choose peace over pain, share your thoughts in the comments. And follow this channel for more stories of resilience, healing, and the kind of love that doesn't ask you to shrink.